As we're getting closer to Bangladesh's parliamentary election next month, election discussions and reporting are heating up. Welcome on DC to Dhaka, a new episode from Washington, DC. I'm Nicolette DeVidar. Elections always seem to look different when seen from a distance. So we asked those with a foot in the United States and in Bangladesh and a foot in supporting different parties and different opinions to see what they're thinking. So let's hear an engaging discussion on the upcoming election from afar. So we're discussing today with Dr. Nuran Nabi. He's a writer, a freedom fighter, scientist, and a social worker, awarded with Bangladesh's second highest national award, the Ekushi Padak Award in 2020, and I hope I did pronounce this right, for his outstanding contribution to the Liberation War. He also received the Washington, D.C. Book Fair Award in 2018, and he's a councilman of Plainsboro Township in New Jersey here in the United States. Also joining us is Radwan Chowdhury, a board member of the Montgomery County Citizen Advisory Board here in Maryland in the D.C. area. He's a political activist, community organizer, and entrepreneur. And we have Hafiz Khan, the president, D.C. of BNP. Thanks so much, gentlemen, for joining us. First question, and that I'm going to go in order. So what is your first thought when thinking about the upcoming elections in Bangladesh? I'm going to call on Mr. Khan first.
We are looking for a free, fair election, which is not happening in Bangladesh at this moment. This is a one-party show election is going on, which is unexpected. We don't want it. We want most participate, all the political parties should involve with this free, fair election. And basically the opposition who are not participating in this election, they're asking only the fair election. They're not asking for anything else. So we are from Washington, D.C. and all other places as a Bangladesh American, we also agree with that. And we have time. The government of Bangladesh should realize that. And they will bring, opposition, all other people should participate in the election as an independent government. I mean, when the election is happening, it should be the caretaker or someone who are not involved or participating in election. So that's the people are fighting. That's all.
So your first thought is free elections.
Yeah, it's just like one party, set up. It's not an election. You can say selection.
Okay, let's move on and see what the others. First thought when you think about the Bangladesh election, Mr. Chowdhury.
Thank you, Nicolette. So the election, like Mr. Khan says, as a citizen, both sides of the aisle in the United States, I hold the dual citizenship as well as Bangladesh, as I was born, and the son, nephew, and a grandson of the freedom fighter like Nuran Nabi uncle. The country has gone through a lot. We went through 1952 and then 1971 liberation for freedom of our country. So our ancestors gave their life, gave their blood to have a freedom, to have the livelihood of our generations. So from the far, sitting here in the United States, we expect to have a fair election. I'm hoping that it will be. I know there is a lots of international pressure, including the United States and the European country and the allies of the United States. There is a tremendous amount of diplomatic and political pressure to have a free and fair election. And only thing we can hope and say that, it will be fair and free election on January 7th. But I do expect as a citizen and for my friends and family who are in Bangladesh, the average general public, general citizens really don't have a lot of issues with the political party. But I know there is a tremendous amount of political and diplomatic pressure to have a fair election, and I'm hoping that will be.
Dr. Nuran, your take on that. What is your first thought?
Thank you for inviting me. As you know, I'm a freedom fighter of Bangladesh Liberation War. I went to the Liberation War at the call of founding father Sheikh Mujibur Rahman to establish 4 principles. And 2 of them was democracy and secular society. So any election, any party, those who will participate to govern and win the election and govern the country, they must abide by these 2 principles. So my expectation in Bangladesh in coming election, those political party, those individual, those who will support the secularism as well as democracy, I expect that they will win and they will govern the country according to those principles. For those principles, 3 million people sacrificed their lives, hundreds of thousands, to all of 200 to 400 thousands women lost million people. They had to take shelter in India in a refugee as a refugee to protect their life, and one of those family was my wife's family. So I am directly involved the suffering, sacrifice, how Bangladeshi people did for their liberation. And after more than 50 years, if we have to face those two fundamental questions, that whether Bangladesh will be a secular country or a democratic country, is very unfortunate. So my expectation is this coming election, people will participate, all the political party will participate, and this election must conducted by the constitution. You cannot just change constitution and demand some unreasonable, unconstitutional thing. So government should be changed through election, general election, and common people will participate, and all the people of mainly our foreign well-wisher, they want free and fair election. We want free and fair election. The current government, they have been telling all the time that they have they also set up a system, this election commission. They have empowered the election commission. They have improved the system. So summarize my expectation, the government will change through election. There is no other way to change the government without election. And government is legally and they are politically, they are bound to conduct a free and fair election through the independent election commission.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is, first of all, is elections along with the constitution, and then you want to see going forward democracy and secular society, which was what the Liberation War was fought on. That's kind of your
yes,
take on that.
Exactly.
Okay, Mr. Khan, I have not heard yet from you in terms of what you expect for the country going forward. Can you elaborate on that a little bit, Mr. Khan, please?
Definitely.
What's the long-term vision?
If your political system is not fair, if the democracy is not working, there is nothing you think about future.
How would you measure democracy, though? Just to clarify, how would you measure democracy if, for example, the economic development has been really very well for Bangladesh?
Yeah, that's fine. Let me give you the example. For an example, we have a big bridge has been built up in Bangladesh, which is called Padda Bridge. It's a historical bridge, right? It has to be spent like 40 billion or whatever million. Whatever is cost, they are spending 10 times, and they're stealing money 90% and giving all people's head of the people who will pay for their loan. What I'm saying, you don't have to believe on my mouth. If you go to the Indian in infrastructure, all other countries' infrastructure, how much they're spending their development, and if you equivalent the same thing to the Bangladesh, you'll see the differences.
Basically, just to sum it up, this is a long explanation in terms of saying from your point of view what you see wrong, but it still has really caught on more like in terms of what the future is. But we get back to that. I want to move on here. What are your reactions to Mr. Khan, Mr. Chowdhury? I start with you, and then please also, what would you want Americans to know about the Bangladeshi elections?
Well, let me answer your first question second. Let me respond to Mr. Khan with all the respect. I want one thing acknowledged, or the world has acknowledged, including the United Nations and the American, the Union continent, has a 7% GDP, is the highest growth ever in 50 plus years, the birth of Bangladesh since the 1971 independence. I align with the Dr. Nuran Nabi uncle because my father, my grandfather, and my uncle are all three of them are freedom fighter. They fought alongside with the late President Ziaur Rahman under his command. Though my uncle is Awami League supporter, but they all fought with the late President Ziaur Rahman in the hill tracts of Chittagong, where I'm from. So Bangladesh has received and acknowledged by the world has the highest GDP in Southeast Asia. It just didn't happen because an incident. It happened because of the progress made. And of course, the progress was made in two parts, right? It's a public and the government partnership. So the private and the government partnership, Bangladesh has achieved that GDP. And it's acknowledged by the world and the World Economic Forum as well. So that's an achievement. Yes, there are corruption, but you cannot say the corruption is in one fold, right? Corruption happens everywhere in the whole 294 countries of the world. Corruption happens. The levels of corruption may be different. So yes, there are corruptions, but the corruption levels might be different. And again, I don't see the internal part of it, so I can effectively say who is at fault. But there are foul players and there are corruptions, of course. For the bridge, probably the most controversial development of Bangladesh since its birth of 1971. But you must still acknowledge that made a huge communication progress from the south to the north of Bangladesh. And yes, we might be in debt to the many people, including the World Economic, including the World Bank and the private sector. But the loan will be paid off as every other country borrow money from. Again, there will always be controversy. There will always be opposition. There will always be, regardless how it turns out to be. But within that context, if we can have a somewhat decent election, if we can have some opposition people who comes to the power to oppose their good and bad and have that political dialogue and have open-minded, I think it's still a progress. Yes, country is still going through a lot of turmoil. Yes, country is still progressing, but you cannot undermine the highest GDP growth in the entire Southeast Asia. The surplus is the India and the other countries in the Southeast Asia. Whatever its citizens ask for from their government, specifically I'm talking about in Bangladesh, is are they safe to go out? Are their life are safe? Are they free to walk and free to talk, free to do? Yes, there are controversy. I'm not going to say that the government is always be subject to controversy, regardless where you go.
Dr. Nabi, I'm going to move on to you. You've been so quiet here the whole time. So
That's okay. Thank you. So I think we have more than 50 years of friendship between the US and Bangladesh. Though initially we have some problem, that during the liberation war, Nixon and Kissinger opposed our liberation war. But after the war, US government recognized the country and puts billions of US aid in Bangladesh for different developmental projects and also in education in many fields. So friendship between these two countries is making progress. So what we want to know, American people, American government, is that Bangladesh is making progress in terms of all economic index, as some of them Mr. Chowdhury mentioned. I don't want to repeat, but in current society, especially in democratic society, that there is no place for violence. Violence and democracy cannot go together. And Bangladesh government, especially under the leadership of Sheikh Hasina, she has been trying to control the violence, contain the violence in a manageable position. There are 17 attempts on the life of Sheikh Hasina, including a grenade attack on her life in a public meeting on August 21st, a couple of years back. So these grenades are used in the war, and that grenade was used by the then under the government of Khaleda Zia BNP government. 21st August, about 23 people were killed, more than 200 people were injured, and then when the caretaker government came to power, they make the trial, and this leader of BNP, Mr. Tariqur Rahman, was convicted for life, I guess. I am not exactly. And many other government officials, they say that yes, government is involved. So there was 17 attempts on her own life, as well as there was a grenade attack in all the district in 600 places in one day simultaneously. Grenade were attacked, including 2 judges were killed. So in this way, there was a violence activity, terrorism during BNP regime. And Sheikh Hasina, when came to power, she controlled those, and there was one shipment of arms and ammunition by anti-Indian group, and a minister, of Jamaat Islam under the Prime Minister Khaleda Zia, he was involved. He was convicted for that smuggling of arms and ammunition for anti-Indian activities across the border. So there are many examples that there was a violence, there was a terrorism, and Sheikh Hasina's government controlled this, contained this. Now people are almost, there's organized terrorism free from Bangladesh. And in just 2 days before, the State Department in their annual report, they give terrorism, anti-terrorism report all over the world, including Bangladesh. In Bangladesh section, they mentioned that Bangladesh government successfully contained the terrorism. All these terrorist group, most of them were from outside ISIS and other organizations. So those were gone, and now Bangladesh free from those organized international terrorist group, and their supporters, local supporters also, they were controlled, they were arrested, and there is no such activity. So by controlling this terrorism, it is not only good for Bangladesh, it's good for the regional as well as good for USA, because USA also wants free the society without terrorism. In USA as well as the supporters of USA or friendly countries of USA all over the world. So this government has made a lot of progress, as Mr. Chowdhury mentioned, in economic terms. I have discussed about this anti-terrorism activity. I must mention that, as I mentioned before, that in democracy there is no place for terrorism. So this BNP, they are in the opposition. They have particular different, and which is expected, which is reasonable. They are doing public demonstration. Hundreds and thousands of people used to attend their meeting. That is expected in democratic society. But on October 28, they called a strike, and after that, or in that demonstration, there were burning of buses and setting fire on institutional building, and they set fire on this Chief Justice. These are all documented, and since then they are organizing the demonstration or hartal almost every week, and until now, in last 2 months, about 700 buses were burned. These are public buses, private buses. These are owned by middle-class businessmen. So they have destroyed their living. And for your democratic demand, you don't have to restore in violence. So what we want to let American people know, American government know, Bangladesh is making progress in economic condition. Bangladesh is making controlling anti-terrorism. Bangladesh is making trying to do free and fair election. And in this election, 28 political party will attend. And there was an opportunity for opposition to join. And if they are popular and if their demand are justified, people would vote for him. They could bring them in power. But boycotting election is not a democratic process.
And actually talk a little bit about also in terms of the vision going forward. You all talk about democracy, you all talk about freedom, although there are different interpretations of it. Now, let's talk about, is actually everyone clear about the various candidates on where they stand in terms of vision? So what are the key aspects of the vision of the various candidates that you would support, and why? Is there something else in the vision going forward that you support of the current government, or that you see particularly enticing that you haven't mentioned yet?
Bangladesh at the crossroad of political direction. Through this election, Bangladesh can go to democratic, secular, and economic developmental process, or Bangladesh can go into a religious fundamentalist to organization, those who believe in terrorism. And it's not my rhetoric. There is a track record. At this crossroad, I expect that Bangladesh people will decide which candidate, which party will help them to continue this economic development. You will be surprised to know that metro rail is running in the capital of Dhaka, which is not a rich country like USA. So you will be then two big bridges which will improve the economic condition of the different parts of the country and as a whole nation. So this kind of development, this kind of political system, those who will continue, people will vote for them, and they will bring back them to power and have a dream. When we are a freedom fighter, we have a dream that there will be a golden Bengal, and golden Bengal you can achieve only through economic development, peaceful society, violence-free.
Dr. Nabi, this is what the current government stands for, and that's what the vision going forward is. Mr. Khan, I'm passing on to you. What is the vision what you find particularly enticing about BNP, for example, for going forward, after having heard all the things what Dr. Nabi said?
You cannot make the picture whole things if there is no justice system, there is no democracy. We don't even think about it. You can make the development, you can make the future dream, everything can possible if you are on the right track. There is a fundamental issue in Bangladesh. There is nothing, government is not giving any people, they don't care about people. They're selecting people and they're manipulating people and using money, whatever they. For an example, let me tell you something. Do you ever heard the American government impose visa sanction, including Justice Department? Do you mean by that?
I actually, on this one, I'm going to have to interject something, because I think we have enough issues with our own Justice Department that has shown itself to be weaponized actually going forward. So I wouldn't necessarily use that as an example at this point.
They don't have a justice. All the opposition people has been caught and put in jail. How could you say the election? Who gonna? Even the government.
All opposition people is all. I find okay. I'm gonna just make one comment here. All opposition people means all is a very absolute terms. There is no such thing as absolute terms. So can you clarify this a little bit? Give us a number.
There is a Bangladesh traditionally system of election last 20-30 years. There is a 30 to 35% people voting Awami League. There is a 30 to 34% voting BNP. Last 5 or 6 election as a result. So BNP contain 30 to 35% people, they are having their mandate by them. Awami League has same, maybe 3 or 4% floating. So if most people doesn't participate the election, who are talking about? Why they impose the visa section in America? It's very simple. Why?
Yeah, go ahead.
Why they're imposing? Because they're saying they want free, fair election. They want.
But that would mean that other countries are always right in the assessment, and I'm not sure that's true.
No.
Circling back in your vision going forward, I still haven't heard though what BNP stand for.
We don't want violence. We want peaceful, free, fair election. Then we can move forward our GDP.
Let's talk about GDP. How do you think? So is there a
This
clear
is all
plan?
our bogus. This is all our making the books.
No, so
Making the books. Why? Okay. What is the reserve? What is the money reserve in Bangladesh right now? Tell me. How much they have reserve in government? Tell me. Why they are asking money for IMF loan? Why?
Okay, so
Who
are you
asked the
saying
loan
the
for
economy
IMF?
is bad? Am I hearing that you say the economy is bad or unsecure?
100% is our economy is down. If
Stand
there
for
is
it.
a free, fair election, if people can elect their own people, definitely we want to move forward. We cannot go back 50 years back. What happened? Freedom fight. I don't even care.
I'm going to move on here to Mr. Chowdhury because I'm not in a discussion here with you. I'm trying to moderate this. I'm just challenging some of the assumptions because they to see where everyone's coming from. So, Mr. Chowdhury, your take on that.
All right, Nicolette, thank you so much again. So yes, I disagree with many things with Mr. Khan. Yes, the economy progress is not bogus. And you have, you stated you have nothing to do with the 1971 liberation. I apologize. My father, my grandfather, my uncle, many others like my family sacrificed, 325,000 of them. Their life didn't go in vain. Democracy, because of the liberation of 1971, you and I are sitting in the United States. Otherwise, you or me or Nuran Nabi uncle or 20 million other people in this country wouldn't be in this country or any other 294 countries in the world. So yes, democracy matters. And the economic progress, of course, I don't have the validity, right? But I cannot deny the United Nations recognized it. I cannot deny that IMF recognized it. I cannot deny that World Bank recognized it. I cannot deny that Western Union or European Union recognized it. I cannot deny the World Economic Forum recognized that Bangladesh made 7% GDP, the highest in the Southeast Asia. So those are facts. I do not support Army League. I do not support BNP. I do not support anybody. I'm here in the United States. I support Democrat. I understand there are differences. BNP has their own opinion. BNP has their own issues, but they need to come to an understanding because they boycotted last election. They boycotted election before, and they're boycotting this one. I don't think that's the right strategy. From any diplomats sitting in Bangladesh, whichever country, whether it's a United States, Russia, England, or European continent, all the ambassadors are there to support both the current sitting prime minister and the opposition party. So if BNP has anything to say and they want to meet with those people, say, okay, these are the irregularities happening in Bangladesh and we want international community to address it, they will, but they are not to be found. So you cannot complain if you're not sitting on a dining table that, oh, I didn't have a dinner plate. Well, dinner plate was there, was serving, but you were missing in action.
Just one word. So what I wish, good for Bangladesh, and Bangladesh is making progress. They are giving in right direction. I hope it will be a golden Bengal. When this government took power, there was 3,000 megawatt power. Now it's more than 20,000 megawatt power. So it will make time, but it is going in right direction.
Thanks so much for coming
That's the problem.
Very lively debate talking about freedom and democracy. It's free exchange.